Right. So, good afternoon, everybody. Um, Welcome to our Wednesday sessions. We've got a great lineup today, all South African lineup this afternoon. And let me start by welcoming Samantha Hanreck, who's presenting today. Samantha has actually got quite a long history with SANCS, and she's also one of the consulting industry experts on the SANCS Cyber Talent Accelerator. Sam is the founder of DataSync, a global technology consulting firm that moves mid-market companies from disconnected systems to integrated operations. He's got 20 years of experience across 5 different continents. She specializes in tech stack consolidation, systems integration, AI adoption, and project delivery. She also serves as a fractional CI, Chief Information for companies navigating digital transformation. Sam today is going to be talking about AI agents in the wild, what companies are getting wrong about security. So if you were sitting in Carissa Varma's lecture yesterday, there were still so many questions. And one of the things that she really spoke about was AI agents, especially agentic AI specifically. So I think this is really a hot topic and everybody's got lots of questions, I know. Sam, welcome back to the SANCS hot seat. And without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to you.
Great. Thanks, Noel. And good afternoon and good day to everybody on the call. Yeah, I'm very excited to share with you guys. I'm going to pop my screen up in a second. I also think this topic is such a large topic, and it's really important to understand not just the surface level of it. So I'm going to try cover quite a broadness of it, and also very much so touch into the security component of it. So I will be sharing my screen. There's quite a bit on the slides to go through, but I'm going to talk also a lot off of the slides. So it's really important that you listen. I will take some pauses and ask for some questions. And also, I'm not sure if you can drop some stuff into the Q&A over here, or just give some comments around certain things. Just give me 1 second while I share my screen. Just one other thing is I put together a off-screen reading document of a really interesting case, which I'll get to in a second, towards the end of the presentations, which I'm even super fascinated by. So I think you guys might know about it and or might have some inputs for me around it. All right, can someone just confirm you can see my screen? Can you see my screen?
No, thanks, Sam. Okay. I think you might be able to make it slightly bigger. I don't know if it's in project mode. Yeah, but I mean, it's okay, but it's good. All right. We can just see your toolbars and things at the top. Let me just see how it's. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so who's this for? Obviously, you guys had a bit of a call yesterday around the AI agents. And so I want to just make sure that we also understand AI agents is going to be almost the new norm. So whether you're an AI expert, you're a security expert, or you work in IT, or you're brand new to this, we need to start getting our head around this. So this masterclass is geared for people to start on their security journey and also start understanding the impacts that this is going to have in the business world. And I think that's where everybody works right now or will be working soon. I'm also assuming that you guys don't have an AI background, and this is the security fundamentals. So I am coming from a medium-sized level, just to make sure that I keep it inclusive. So by the end of the session, my goal is to explain what an AI agent is in plain language, name real platforms that are being used out of there. There's the enterprise level ones, there's the mid-level market ones, and then there's also the open source. So we'll dive into those different areas. Also, very, very importantly, we want to be able to identify the security risks in all of these spaces. And then lastly, connect the risks to real incidents that's already happening currently. So it's not even a future thing, it's a right now thing. And how to apply this thinking and challenge your brief. Okay. All right. Let's just move this off screen. So what is an AI agent? Most people think of an AI agent, it's like when we're using something in the realm of ChatGPT, or you're on a website and a little bot pops up and you have a conversation and you talk back to it. So right now, I just want to get a clarity understanding around agents. In the, let's say, a couple of years ago before AI, we even used to call a call center person an agent. So there's the terminology agent gets referred to quite often. So we need to understand what is the difference between a human agent, an AI agent, a multi-agent, and the different arenas of agents. Okay. So what can an agent do? It can log into a system, it can act, it can read, it can send emails, it can do bookings on behalf of you. You can send a message through your WhatsApp to get it to go and action a trigger and go and actually run and do stuff for on behalf of you, almost like an assistant. Okay. And it doesn't sleep. So it keeps working right through the day, which one of the huge attractions for companies wanting to bring in more agents into their workspace. One thing I do want to speak around is understanding what is the difference between automation and AI. So automation is the movement of data. So an automation process, and these terminologies, and I'm going to give quite a lot of detail around these as I talk through the slides, because when you have proper understanding of this, it makes the topic at hand a lot more easier to understand. We don't want you to understand AI just on the surface, because you can't secure something if you don't know the depth of it. So automation is the movement of data. So basically, it's I go and have an example of a movement of data is I go to and put a rule in my email that every time Samantha sends an email to Mark, it will go and file it into a folder called Mark. Okay, that is an automation rule. AI, where it's got and the transformation of data, so that's the difference, where it goes and takes and it says, okay, when an email comes in from Mark on Samantha's email, I want you to transform the data, so consume it, read it, and respond, and sit in my outbox ready to go. So that's the key difference here. So we also do have some agents acting on an automation flow. So I'm not going to get into too much detail around that, but I just want you to start understanding the differences, because it makes it a lot harder to put security in place, understanding those different components. So what are the four building blocks of every agent? So first of all, you've got a brain. So the brain does the reasoning, okay? And I want to just stick on this point for a second. So one of the key things in the security space as well, when you're advising a company or working in the security department or embarking on your security journey, and there's going to be AI in all aspects of any business right now and going forward for the rest of what we're going to understand of what we know of. So what is key to understand is it's one thing making sure you have your AI agent secure, but it's another thing understanding the platforms that the agent is either working on top of, so an LLM model, which is like the brain, or other models that it's busy acting in. So whether it's using an API, whether it's using, plugging into another environment, or doing a RAG pulling, which is your augmented generation of information. So that's the brain, okay? Then the memory, just move this out of the way here. Then the memory is what the agent knows right now. So it's got a short-term memory of what it's busy consuming from a memory space. And then it's got what it has learned from the past interaction. So it's got long-term memory. So this is quite key, where its memory knows what task at hand it's busy doing, but it also has long-term memory of understanding, memorizing what its function is, okay? So then we've got the tools, so real world capabilities. So the tools are APIs, databases, calendars, emails, file system, web browsers, and code execution. So this is what would work within the agent's sphere, that it would need to go and move around and grab information from and execute and action certain components of its functionality. Then the orchestrator, so this is the logic layer, okay? The logic layer is where it decides what the agent actually needs to do next, what tool it calls on. So a bit of the logic layer, you can think about it, is quite similar to automation rules. So when I've done this, this is my next step. Once that's completed, I go to email and action this. Okay, so this is quite critical to understand these components, because once you understand these 4 quadrants of information, you can understand where your potential security components can come into play here. Just scroll on. I don't know why it's not scrolling. Give me 1 second. There we have got it. All right. So a multi-agent system, I kind of alluded to this earlier. And a multi-agent system is where you're going to have exactly what the name says, multiple agents running. So I want to give you an example of it. So quite often you can have a team of agents. I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of the hype out there on LinkedIn and wherever on Instagram and YouTube around, having agents run your business. You can have a multi-agent team and they can, basically replace humans. Okay, there's been a lot of hype around that. So what is a multi-agent? It's basically different agents having different functionality, but working in a sequence that tackles their job, their role, their function. Okay. So I've just given an example here. First one is an agent that classifies incoming emails. The agent number 2's job is, pull account history from a CRM. A CRM is a customer relationship management tool, just using an example because it's quite a common system within a business. Excuse me. And then agent 3 is the decision. So it either approves, refunds, or escalates. So, they each have their individual intelligence. And then agent 4, it actually goes and actions the item and sends the response for the payment process. So there's no humans involved, and it can happen in seconds, okay, which is great. And generally, when you start building out agents, because it's quite new technology, I would say in the last 12 to 18 months, it's been around. What we found was you get a better response from an agent if it just has one function to do. So that's why this has been split out into 4 different agents. So what this allows your agent performance to be is a lot better because it's only it's only focusing on one function it needs to fulfill. So using multi-agents is a very common practice in a business, okay? Having an agent try fulfill all 4 of these steps, you're going to find it's going to hallucinate either on step 3, step 2, or if it gets step 1 wrong, the rest of it can all be wrong. So it puts a lot of risk on the accuracy and results of your agents within your environment. But even so, doing this breakout of multi-agents, having different steps, it's still dangerous. So I've just highlighted at the top here what's dangerous. The agent is trusting the agent before it that it's done its job properly. So it could go through these 4 steps, and if agent 1 got classifying the email incorrectly, agent 2, 3, and 4 are also going to be wrong. So not having a human checkpoint is quite a risk. So this is often a terminology that we refer to as called the human in the loop. So it is advised, obviously, any business that's rolling out agents until they get to a point where you've got the data and that you can see these agents have not gone rogue and not hallucinated and are fulfilling at a certain percentage. So normally you'll have an 85% or 90% accuracy rate. And then you can say, I'm happy to let this agent run on its own. Okay. So those are the kind of checkpoints you would want to have in place. A lot of businesses these days are actually just rolling them out. So, you would ask the questions, where's the validation happening? In the agent-to-agent communication, has it been authenticated? Where's the human checkpoints before irreversible action? So what's an irreversible action? That would be processing a payment. Okay. Let's go to the next one. So some real platforms that you'll encounter. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about here which is the norm. It's the legacy environments. It's the well-known environments that have been around for many, many years. So, or some of them even decades. So these have a lot more, I would say, robust security frameworks in place. They're a bit more secure. It's often more aimed at enterprise level clients. So that's the larger clients. So what makes this interesting with the agent space right now, the AI agent space, is these companies have actually been a bit slow to bringing out their agents because they've obviously been more pedantic around their frameworks, their security, the risks that can happen because they work with larger clients that can have larger risk, even though there has been a couple of cases, which I'll touch on in a second. But right now in the AI space, there's such a lot or a large race of, who's getting to the front line before each other. And I'm going to talk about some of the open source agents in a second. But let's just talk about this for a second. So we've got Microsoft Copilot Studio. So how does that agent work within that environment? So essentially that agent would function between your Microsoft Suite environment. So you could have, when a Teams message come in, you could probably build an agent that goes and, sees if a Teams message comes in from a certain person, it can trigger the next step in an action and or answer based on information that you've trained it on. So there's not a lot of code required. It's already inside millions of enterprise environments that people are using it. And they are starting to get some data to measure the value. Then we've got other kind of agents sitting in the chat GPT space or a custom GPT. So again, a custom GPT is something that you train with inside OpenAI's environment called ChatGPT. And you can share it and it can actually act on certain things. You have to have a certain license to go and actually use this. I think it's the business license, which is close to $100. So all of these are obviously within these environments, so it's very containerized and managed. A Salesforce, which is a CRM system, very well known, also has agents within its environment. And then Google also has for Workspace, which is, I don't know if I'm sure a lot of you use Gmail. You can start seeing your summarization at the top. So some of that is not necessarily just agents, it's actually just AI layers on top of it. But you can go and create agents to actually go and action actual tasks within your environment. Okay. Then at the bottom, I've just mentioned a couple of open source ones. So there's LangChain, LangGraph, Crew AI, also OpenClaw, which I'll speak about a little bit later, and then AutoGen. So these are just some to get familiarized with. Some that I haven't mentioned on here. There's another one called OutSystems. It's quite well known in the UK. So a lot of these agent environments are popping up. There's probably a couple that have come out where, they say, build your team out on these agents that have just rolled out. They're not associated with the Microsoft or Google. The reason why I'm spending quite a bit of time on this is also understanding that you need to be able to vet the environments that are you're gonna be working in. So it's very important that you understand what security these vendors that you potentially going to work with have, because that's going to have a direct impact to your security journey that you're putting in place with the business that you work with or are recommending. So just to touch on that last point there, what we used to do, which is very common because we very much work in a SaaS environment, so that software is a solution, or we go and host our stuff onto, for example, Oracle or Microsoft, or wherever we have our data sitting of our financial system or our warehousing system or whatever you're using in a business environment. Often when we need to go get our security component ready or for our audits and stuff annually, we would ask them for their SOC report. So I'd ask Oracle to issue theirs to me, and that would be a sub agenda that I have to apply. And the reason why I'm just mentioning that is because when you put your data on their environment, you are giving your data for them to manage. So you can't have all these policies and rules in place for yourself when you don't have control over their environment. So that's very key and important to note. And that's the same thing with agents and also AI tools that we use when you pump our data inside it. You do not own your data. Okay, so two types of agents and why it matters. So you've got the agent within the system, okay, and the other one is outside of a system. So within a system, these are the kind of things that I've just touched on: Copilot, Microsoft Teams. What are their characteristics? The permissions are governed by the platform. So, that's why sometimes it feels a bit more secure going with a legacy company like Microsoft or Google. You have to stay within their defined boundaries. So often you're very defined to their rules, and what they say goes, and how many calls you can have, how much data you can load up. So, you've got a lot of guardrailing around the way they want you to operate. Then there's also the logging and monitoring built into the platform. So, you're also reliant on their data centers being up, and being able to make sure that you can access your agent. Even, a lot of them will probably upsell packages where if the one data center goes down, like we've just experienced now with one of the AWS centers being hit with one of the drones, it actually went offline. So a lot of these environments will hopefully have backup environments where they could just switch us over. But these are all risks that we need to identify when starting to embark on our agent journey. All right, so it is easier to audit being on their environments because they obviously have quite rigorous security teams. So you can't. There's also the pros around doing this because you just fall into their requirements of their environment. You're not going to have to go, create your own set of rules. You will abide by theirs. All right. So I just said you at the bottom within the system, within scope. So there are limitations, and it's very important to make sure you understand that. Okay, let's just go down. Cross-platform agents are built to operate multiple systems and APIs. So I'll give you guys an example of that. And, there's a lot of power in that because you actually want your agent to be operate across your desktop, your environment, your servers, your businesses to get real value out of it. There's only so much value you can get from an agent doing something just inside Microsoft or just inside Google. All right, oops, let's check if this jumped back. Okay. Okay. So where do the big risks lie? So let's start touching on the security side of things. The big risk lies that once agent can start doing things, there is an opportunity that they can go wrong. Traditional security was built around humans. What has always been known, what's our weakest link in security? It's humans. That's what it's always been. Because, you can put a lot of, security measures in place, antivirus, you can put a lot of monitoring in place, but you're not really sure how a human's going to act when they accidentally click on something and give away their password because it looks so real. So now we're going to have to start factoring in how our risk analysis needs to change to adopt into the risk factors of agents. Okay. So agents, break almost every assumption underneath those controls. So an agent can follow, you can also, going to the extreme, you can also have an agent that will keep on trying to contact somebody to try fulfill its role and job, but it can go super rogue where it can get really weird and start to create other scenarios thinking it's just doing its job. So these are some of the key things that are always advised to a company is to rather test and roll out small, not just rip out departments and put agents in replacing them. And maybe as you're going to put in agents, you definitely go and allocate quality agent monitors, like people that actually go quantify whether the agent is performing correctly and not going rogue. Okay. Some of the other things is agents can't receive MFA. MFA is multi-factor authentication. Okay. They can be manipulated. So you can reverse engineer into an agent. You can definitely, get it to go a bit rogue if you haven't programmed it properly. And when I say program, you haven't trained it. So often when you build out an agent, you also need to give it guardrails of what it can and can't do. And when it gets to a point where it's not fulfilling, that it needs to actually say, I can't do this, because it's just going to keep trying and thinking that it's doing something correctly and doing it, good. It can also, one of the pros around agents is they can act really fast, thousands of decisions. We've all seen when we throw something into ChatGPT or Claude or anywhere on Gemini, how it can just take this whole transcript of information and go into something mind-blowing, okay? One of the also the positive things is it doesn't need sleep like us humans. It also doesn't get distracted or need to go for lunch. So those are some really cool things. But again, we need to make sure that we know how to guard these agents. Okay, so what are some of the kind of attacks that can happen? Okay. So what number one is a prompt injection. So it's a hidden instruction inside content that the agent reads to trick it. I kind of touched on this in my previous slide. So, you get it to do something that it was never supposed to do. And, as much as we have agents that are really helping businesses at the moment, and I keep harping on the fact that agents are going to be everywhere. In all businesses, we're going to work alongside agents. They're going to be our new colleagues at work. That's just how it's going to operate. We're going to probably have HR departments that look after AI. So it'll be AI HR departments that can also measure their performance, know when to put them to sleep when they're not working anymore, and actually monitor them. So one of the key things is to know that when it's doing something with a hidden instruction, we need to be able to flag that and keep monitoring it. Okay. There also needs to be agent identity, so the credentials that can be that are managed badly, shared accounts, static API keys. You need to have rotation of information or passwords, and then proper scoping per agent. I think it's really exciting that we've got this technology in our hands right now, but we also need to know how to protect it. Number two, excessive agency. So what does that mean? Agency is it's got its autonomous. It can go do stuff. It's got a lot of power that it needs, and something can go wrong. I've touched on the APIs. So insufficient logging is number four. Agents make thousands of decisions, but can we explain why they're making that decision? Are we analyzing the data? Do we understand it? When something goes wrong, is there somebody that's investigating it? Are we taking these wrongful actions or executions and re-looking at it and making sure it makes sense? A lot of the stuff I'm touching on right now is not going to be a security department's responsibility, but it should be questions that you're asking the other departments that you're trying to secure. Because essentially these are measurements that need to be put in place when the business is rolling out these agents, because you can't wait till the security incident has happened, because then it's just going to be this reactive emotion each time rather than getting proactive. And that's why we have security departments within a business, is because we want to start preempting and being, moving to a monitoring environment, become proactive around how we guard the business. So unsafe agent chaining. So what does that mean? Agent chaining is like multi agents, like I mentioned earlier. So again, you get one agent that gets compromised, and it can move in and affect the whole pipeline, because agents will be able to talk to each other and get quite confident around how they do it. And then a very, very big one where we're seeing shadow AI, and shadow AI is being used in a lot of businesses. I think there's curiosity, which is really good on the one hand. But then on the other hand, there's a lot of risk around that, because, it hasn't been approved by the business. Are they installing the AI agent software, or giving it access to certain applications and VPNs and port, things within your actual business environment, or your laptop, or your device, your phone? All right. So let's just chat about some real incidents that have happened. So, even ChatGPT and Google Drive have had incidents happened. A malicious document in a victim's Google Drive, when summarized by ChatGPT agent, triggered the agent to exfiltrate the contents of other files to an attacker controlled by an endpoint. The user saw a normal summary. The data was already gone. So it's so quick how this can happen, okay? Microsoft Copilot. Researchers found that customer support agents built on Copilot Studio leaked an entire CRM database. So I specifically put these legacy examples in here because I was saying earlier, it's safer to use a legacy environment. But you can see that it's not safe. So just bearing this in mind and understanding that even these enterprise level technologies solutions like Microsoft and Google that have been around for 2 decades plus, okay, still have these scenarios playing out with them. Okay, so this just highlights the super potential risks of what agents can do, because unfortunately, the function of having an agent in your business is not going to go put an agent in and then you go watch every step of the process. Then you might as well have a human doing it. Yes, an AI can do certain components of it quicker, but if the risk factor is too high, then it's not adding value to the business. Okay. And then the third one was Salesforce. Again, Salesforce is a CRM system, so a customer relationship management system. Researchers manipulated Salesforce's Einstein. Einstein is the agent, so that's what they've called the agent within inside the environment. They manipulated it to reroute customer communications to a researcher-controlled email account. So through a prompt injection. So they injected a prompt. Okay, a prompt is when you tell it to do something, and all of a sudden it started moving all its communication. So one of the key functions that Einstein does for businesses, I also work quite a bit in a tool called HubSpot. It's a competitor of Salesforce. They've got their AI and they're called Breeze AI. And you can set up and switch it on as a bonus function of using that software, where it actually answers real time your customer requests and information. But that's your first customer facing experience that they're having. And if your AI agent is going rogue, it can be quite detrimental to the business, and actually can cause, be catastrophic. It can cause you being sued, or if there's any problems, it can actually ruin your reputation as a business. Okay, so there's no complete fix for prompt injection yet. So these are just things to have in the back of our mind. You need to make sure that we have sandboxing environments, human checks in place on sensitive data or actions that need to take place. Bringing in AI and AI agents into a business is amazing, and there's so many plus and positives around it, but we need to understand the complexity around it. It is also like a black box to a certain degree. And, it's happening so quickly. There hasn't been a lot of time to look at data and understand the pattern recognition of why is it doing this? When did it start going rogue? Where can we see checkpoints of what happened? Is it model related, etc.? Okay, so what are companies getting wrong? I kind of just touched on this, but I want to go into a little bit of detail for you all as the cybersecurity experts out there. So every AI agent security incidents follow the same underlying pattern. Okay, they put out an agent. We want to build it to solve a problem. They test it mostly in a sandbox environment or a tested environment. Okay. They're overboard. They go overboard with permissions. I'm going to break this down for you guys in a second, and then the security happens at the end. And this is exactly what I was saying earlier. You almost want to understand what is the security controls at the beginning here. This should be part of your build stage here. What are the potentials where it can go wrong, and how are we as a business putting certain measures in place to protect this, and what is our business standard for rolling out agents? And because agents are going to be a cross-company endeavor, it almost comes back to just like you guys would follow one of the frameworks, whether you're rolling out NIST or ISO or doing any of that in the security space. You have a registry where you're listing all the tools that are being used in the business. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same thing with agents. You have to list them. What are their functions? What are their security guardrails that they must follow? What is, what APIs, what systems, what, different tooling sets or data points are they touching that it can have an impact on? And then, does that have the capability to go do, 90-day password resets, API key refreshes, and so forth? Okay. So this is just going into a bit of detail of the previous slide. So no threat modeling. Most organizations ask one question before deploying, does it work? And then they never look at it again until it's attacked. Okay. So this is why I was saying we need to start it at the beginning. There's also shared credentials. All agents share one service account. So I've just built out for a client recently now. It's an amazing agent we built for them. It goes and grabs information from their ERP system. It first sits on their email box as the email comes in. Their invoices come in, it scans, it files the invoices away, it reads the invoices and populates an Excel sheet that is it's gone and fetched the vendor names from the finance system and also the GL code that it needs to be allocated to. And it goes and puts it inside a file ready to import. It's saving them 4 hours a week. That works out to a month a year, which is amazing. But I know because I've been behind the scenes and I've built it, that it's using an API key. I know that once I hand over this project to the client, I need to put in place a measurement where they can say every 3 months or every 90 days, 60 days, are you changing your API keys? Are you going to look at what services are this agent using? Because, for example, we created an email address called invoices at. So it's nobody's account. Nobody's really watching it. So who is going to take responsibility for that? And what systems does the credentials touch? And can it be compromised? Okay, so testing functionality only. So this is, again, when you're building a product, and for me, an agent is like a product, essentially, within a business or for a client. We focus on the functionality. We don't really sit there and wonder, oh, can this be infiltrated? That's very much a security department's job. And I think this is one of the awesome collaborations that is going to happen across business where, IT and security have always been a cost center department or a sidestep of a business. And I think right now businesses are starting to realize that you are a technology business and you cannot function without technology and security. Doesn't matter if you're selling brooms or if you're selling a piece of software, because you operate in a world where you have to have your business online. You have to use technology like AI, social media, CRMs, and systems to communicate with your clients. Okay. So then the last point I just want to touch on here is the model is a black box. So as I said this earlier, we come back down to AI governance. So what is our governance around this? How has the model decided this? What are the legal implications when it comes to any of the requirements? Are you guys based in EU? Are we based in South Africa? Do we have some frameworks that we need to follow to make sure that we are adhering to this? All right. So what good actually looks like. So the 5 controls that can change everything, okay, is number 1, scope permissions to the minimum requirement. So what I mean by that is map only what's needed. Don't go and just open it up. And it's a common thing. I've built a lot of solutions for clients and worked with a lot of teams, is when you're trying to get something to work, you want to just give it admin rights. You want to just open it up and just get it working. And then later on, you will come back and sort of lock it down. And that is not a correct way to make sure that you keep these controls in places. Number 2, separate identity per agent. So don't share service accounts. I know a lot of companies are going to do this because it's going to be cost effective. You need to advise against that and say, these are the risks. Yes, we might be saving $20 a month, but what does that actually mean if we have a cybersecurity attack? Okay, get each agent to act on its own scope credential. Automate rotation. Full activity logging per identity. So when you start looking at putting agents into an environment, ask the question to the vendor, or when you guys are helping the business decide, or are you part of the decision of, does this agent have enough security? What is the activity logging list? Are we able to see a historic list of what these agents have been doing? Or no, they tell you, no, the system doesn't have that. That would be a red flag for me not to use that system. Okay. Number 3, log actions, not just inputs and outputs. So inputs and outputs will be your data flowing between it that's been transformed, but you also want to log the actions. Record every tool called, so every time it's invoked an API, every time data is accessed. Build detection on top of those logs. So these are very important security components that you can put in place. Number 4, define what requires a human. So look at the entire process. So this is what's quite nice, is you can go and map out a process of what the process will be for the agent. So it starts here. These are the touch points that it touches on. This is the data it consumes and exposes. These are the, the credentials that need to be used at each of these points. And how am I monitoring it? Where do I actually need a human in that's going to add value, but not defeat the object of having an agent? Okay. Again, financial transactions, credential reset, we've said that above, but this is just something that a human can make sure that happens. I'm pretty sure we'll probably have agents that can do this in the future as well, that you'll have an agent watching an agent. But at some point, you will need some sort of report going to a human. Even if you've got 100 agents that it goes to one person, there's still going to be some form or measurement until agents are 100% trustworthy. I don't think that's too far away, but that's another conversation. All right, and then test adversarially. So before you ship it, actually go run a prompt injection. Like, try penetrate it, try do what you need to do, allow the security department to try break their own tool first. It's quite often what I do when I build any custom GPTs or something for a client. I will go try get it to go out of its framework and training that I've trained it on, because I want to break it before my client does, because it's quite embarrassing if my client breaks it and I didn't pick up that problem. So these are quite clear 5, components that you can apply, and just think about every time you are working in this space and going to start rolling out AI agents. It's something important to keep in mind. All right. So just some key takeaways, and then I'm going to just give you a real world example. I'm just checking the time here that I'm still on time. But some of the key takeaways are: agents are already deployed. Okay, they're already running in a lot of areas. There's custom built agents with environments. Okay, the attack surface it's changed. Okay, and it's going to need to be. It's not something that we can not have a huge focus on. Okay, there's a lot more impact. All our traditional controls were built and designed around humans. Agents act differently. Humans, yes, we do have access to API keys, and we do have access to certain things, but most of the time we're not going to remember that key in our head. We're going to store it in a password manager, or we're going to, unfortunately, sometimes write it down on a piece of paper, which is terrible. But that's what we have geared the controls for, to not allow that to happen. Whereas the principles have changed when it comes to the actual agents. They will have all that information. If you could almost inject a prompt to get that API key out of it, you could go and actually infiltrate that entire process. So it is super key that you understand the frameworks that the agents work in, what their rules are, and what's the environment level of security that they operate within. Okay. Real incidents are already happening. I've spoken about the ChatGPT agent exfiltration. I've spoken about Copilot and the Salesforce agents rerouting customer communications. Your security fundamentals are more relevant now than ever. Okay, you don't need to be an AI expert, but you need to understand how AI works. Security and AI are going to be the 2 biggest topics that cannot exist without each other. And understanding more and more of AI, what's under the hood, what are the concerns around, when you're pulling information from models, when you're working with agents, when you're working with cloning tools, when you're working with giving your voice over to a system that does it. All of these have direct impacts on your security that is required around this. So these are very important questions that need to be asked. And I can tell you right now, no other department in a business is asking this question, because they don't understand technology like we all do. For them, they will be sold, which is exactly how we've been taught, is, when marketing goes out there, they're focusing on the problem and their pain point that's being solved by putting an AI agent in place, or by putting this new system in place. They're like, okay, this is going to save me time. This is going to stop me duplicating my work and working in silos. They're not asking, oh, there's a potential risk of it, sharing my customers' information out. they don't have that insight. That's not their way of thinking and mindset. So the more we can understand exactly how these tools work and exactly what their capabilities are, the more we can protect them. Okay, let's go on here. So just some resources to go deeper. I see we have a bit of time, so I might want to just jump onto my other slide. It's not a slide, but it was something I wanted to share with you guys to just have some reading offline. But what I'll do is once I'm finished with this slide, I'm just going to take a pause and see if there's anything in the Q&A for me to just tackle. And then if there's still time left, I want to just talk around the OpenClaw case. So there's a couple of resources to go deeper. I really, really encourage you. There's so much information out there right now, and we cannot ignore what's going on. And it's free, and it's out there, and it's at your fingertips. So really go read this information. Go follow YouTube channels. I'm happy to share some of the ones that I follow. There's amazing people on LinkedIn sharing out information. So here are some of the, definitive frameworks for LLMs and AI agents vulnerabilities. So go check out this OWASP. There's another one here, Adversarial Threat Landscape for AI Systems. So go have a look into this. There's obviously the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. I think you guys are going to touch on some of this. There was a very interesting CrowdStrike, which is one of the cybersecurity companies out there. They did a global threat report, and their latest, intelligence report specifically covers the AI era and looks at some of the agents that are going on in that space. So thank you. Let me just stop sharing for a second and see if there's anything in the chat.
Awesome. Yes, we have loads of questions in the chat. So I don't know. I think I'd like to ask you some of them. Perhaps the OpenClaw. I'm not sure we could use that potentially. If there's which would you rather do? I think it's going to be an either or.
Okay, sorry, you broke up there a little bit. Just say that again.
Sorry, I was saying I think it's going to be an either or between questions and OpenClaw.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to spend 3 minutes on OpenClaw. I just want to quickly say the 3 to 4 minutes, and then I want to share the document with you guys. You can read it in your own time, and I really recommend you go and look at it. Okay, so OpenClaw is one of the open source AI agent platforms that were released by a guy called Peter Steinberger. Okay, it went viral overnight, like viral. In the history of GitHub, so GitHub is a repository that people put their code in. It is the most downloaded tool that happened in the space of a week. Okay. In the space of it going viral, they had a trademarking issue. It was originally called Maltbot, okay? And so they had to change the name. In the 30 seconds that they tried to change the name of the domain, somebody stole their domain. And a crypto scamming hacker team went and stole it. But remember, OpenClaw is an AI agent platform, which is open source. So it's not like secured by Microsoft and whatever else. So I put a document together. I really, really advise you guys to go look at it. The CTO or CEO of NVIDIA, which is the company busy making the AI chips right now, has said this piece of software or tool is going to change the trajectory of AI agents for the next 5 years. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Hopefully I've left you guys a bit curious around that, but let me grab some of the questions if I can.
Okay, so let's get going with that. Thank you, Sam. Good afternoon, Samantha. I deal a lot with procurement and managing subcontractors. If we deploy an autonomous AI agent to handle our supply chain logistics and it gets compromised, say it gets tricked into approving a fault in the payment or leaking sensitive data, are companies treating this as an internal security failure on their part, or is it considered a third-party vendor breach? How should we be structuring our service contracts to protect ourselves where an AI agent essentially goes rogue?
Okay, great question. So first of all, I wouldn't deploy it in the whole supply chain, because that's too much risk. I would start with a section and get it working. I would start with your least risk to the business. So, maybe it'll just be sitting watching your emails come in for procurement, and it going and filing it and labeling it into an inbox with, however you want it, and perhaps creating a little import file into your system. That would be the first step I did. I wouldn't just, smack it right across your supply chain area. It is your responsibility as a business to look after your security. So you can't really shove it onto a third party risk. There is risks if you're plugging into their environment. So that's another factor that you need to think about. Maybe you want to plug into their finance system so that it doesn't even come via email, and you're busy pulling the invoices and you're doing something with it in that space. So this is exactly like if you're going to be getting information from a bank or uploading. You need to understand the risks and what their security posture is at each step of the moment. So take it step by step. Go for the low risk first, get that working, test it, roll it out, leave it there for a couple of weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. Watch the data, have a human overseeing it, and then go into the next project, the next section of your supply chain.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, so one of the things I think that really hit home was your statement that you do not own the data as soon as you start using an AI model. So a lot of people are asking, well, then who owns it? Who has access to it? What do they do with it?
Interesting question. So, yeah, we've basically trained all those LLM models out there. When you guys all talk on Facebook and comment and Instagram and Twitter or X now, we busy training their models, Llama, Grok. That's all coming from our data. The same thing, even though I pay for ChatGPT, okay, I've got a paid for account, $20 a month. There's a setting there where I have to go say, turn off my data, that you can't use it to train your model. But there's no setting there saying, do not use my data for anything else. So you need to, all of us get iPhones, we all get Android phones, and when we go set up our phone or do an update, you normally get a screen where it goes, your terms and conditions. Who reads that? Not me. Nobody. We just go scroll down and we go accept. And I can tell you now, in there's the small print saying, even on your phone, there's a component of them owning your data. So, this is how the world works. And that's why larger companies are opting to build their own LLMs, so have their own AI models on servers that are within the environment. So yes, it's a critical thing to understand the difference.
Thank you. Okay, quite a big question about South Africa, and this would obviously apply to all states in Southern Africa. And I think the question of, well, what are we doing about building sovereign AI capabilities, okay? And what's needed to make this happen? And is there gatekeeping involved? Are we being closed out? Has Africa been shut out of the quest for sovereign AI capabilities? What are your views on this?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm glad you guys are even thinking about that. So I had an amazing chat with a woman that's actually part of a fellowship for the Stellenbosch University. She's actually part of, she's got a doctorate in AI. She's part of the governance that is shaping the African AI policy for the whole of Africa. And one of the key things is we need to act as a continent. We can't act just as South Africa. We're not big enough. We don't have the right resources to go up China against the likes of China and America. So yes, data sovereignty, AI sovereignty is really important. And if we come together as a continent, I think we have a lot of potential. There's big data centers being rolled out in Africa at the moment. There's quite a few projects on the go. And that will really facilitate us to be stay not so dependent on the Silicon Valley. I already know the EU are busy pushing out their own version of a ChatGPT because they don't want to be so reliant on America. So it obviously brings in the component of the geopolitics and all of that stuff. We want to be able to own our own data, because even like my comment I just made in the previous question is, even as South Africans and Africans, we don't want to not own our data. So if we could at least have it on data centers and have our own AI companies coming out of Africa, it's going to keep us relevant.
Okay, so last one. There's so many great questions, and I'm sorry that we can't get to them all. Students ask the really mind-bending questions, but with great insight. But I think this is something that everybody would like to know the answer to from somebody who's busy actually actively deploying digital transformation in organizations. What skills should people be learning now to protect themselves in an AI-driven world? Presume we're talking about protecting your job or your career.
Yeah. So there's two parts to this answer. Okay. So the first one is, yes, AI is going to replace a lot of jobs. Okay, it's a fact, and it's not just the blue collar jobs. I actually think that's going to be one of the last ones. Like, there's talk of plumbers in the next couple of years are going to be more valuable than lawyers, because it's hard to replace a plumber, because AIs can't really go into water yet. It's going to probably get electrocuted. Whereas a lawyer's job, you can recite it and feed it textbooks, and it can write the bar. It's already able of AI's models are already able to do that. So there is talk of, going and getting physical skills and stuff like that. I'm not good at being a plumber, and I don't plan on being a plumber anytime soon. I enjoy what I do. So my goal for myself is to keep upskilling. Never in the history of existence have we had access to this amount of information for free, okay, online, and the ability to go upskill ourselves. So go get a fay with what's out there with AI. I think also we're moving into very much an opportunity space of entrepreneurship. So it's going to change into that opportunity where we can learn a lot more around that. But there's nothing where we can sit around and wait. And I think being an employee that has AI skills will be an employee that sticks around. Being an employee that doesn't have AI skills, and also security is huge, because the more AI there is in the world, the more security they're going to need. So they go very, very much hand in hand.
Yes, and we're going to close out there, but I think we're all waiting to see how this is actually going to pan out. I mean, the predictions in terms of white collar job losses, sit down desk jobs, are truly frightening. And I think, we also have to ask the question, if AI wipes out everyone's jobs, well, who's going to be buying the products of those companies? Who's going to be paying the taxes that are keeping governments going? So there's potentially a huge social reckoning coming here. What I can say is, in desk jobs, try and avoid jobs that are rinse and repeat, tasks that are very repetitive. One that requires a human analytical decision at the end of the day and a sign off and human in the loop are a bit safe at this point. But I mean, I'm actually quite worried about where this is going. I'm not going to lie. I think there is going to be a showdown and a reckoning, and then maybe a rebalancing after that. But I think it's going to be an ugly patch.
Yeah, I agree. And just one other positive thing I want to add is, every time we've had a revolutionizing change in history. So, one of the big things is to always, even though this is really, really unique and different, the AI, every time we've had something, the Industrial Revolution, every time we've had something big happen, there's a whole bunch of new jobs that also come out. So stay educated, see what's happening. I actually saw last week of these jobs I've never heard of what they actually even do, but they're going to change into jobs that are adding value. So I think, don't, exactly what Noel said, stay away from the rinse and repeat ones. Anything that can be automated or that's a repetitive job, data capturing, those kind of things, don't even bother getting into that. Go find your niche and what makes you tick, and follow that side of it.
Sam, thank you. I think that was captivating. So many questions. The students are saying thank you so much for such an insightful lecture. And as always, we're really grateful for your time, your expertise, and that industry view right from the coalface. Thank you for making the time available to us.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Sam. We really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Cheers,
Thanks,
everybody, and I'll see you. We'll see you back here at 5 o'clock. Thank you.